The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the producers or any affiliated entities. Listener discretion is advised.
Time Capsule Tunes presents Vault Chronicles, where we take a deep dive beyond the beats. With your hosts, Cassandra Ryder, Jasper Knight, and Marc Hamilton.
Welcome to our podcast, Vault Chronicles. In our first segment, we're shining the spotlight on the Broadway musical, The Book of Mormon, the award-winning musical that has taken audiences by storm. From the creators of South Park, this show blends comedy, satire, and a surprising amount of heart. The story follows two young, naive Mormon missionaries who are sent to a remote village in Uganda to spread their faith. What unfolds is a hilariously irreverent journey, filled with catchy tunes, absurd situations, and a poignant exploration of belief and doubt. At its core, the Book of Mormon is a masterful blend of humor and commentary on religion and faith. It manages to poke fun at the quirks and contradictions of organized religion, while also celebrating the power of faith and human resilience. So sit back, relax, as we dive into the world of the Book of Mormon.
Thanks, Mark. Get ready to dive into a world of satire, tap dancing, and maybe a little controversy. We're going deep on the Book of Mormon musical.
You know, we're from the minds behind South Park.
Oh, yeah, Trey Parker and Matt Stone.
Those guys, yep. And joining them, we've got Robert Lopez.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we're talking some serious comedic and musical talent here.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to trace the whole creative journey, the impact, and, we're not shying away from those uncomfortable parts.
Oh, absolutely not. This is a show that makes you think, makes you debate. So before we get to those debates, let's set the stage a bit. These creators, they didn't just magically appear with this smash hit.
Right.
South Park. That's where they really kind of solidified that reputation. Satire, no sacred cows.
Totally. But South Park was animation, right? There's a layer of removal.
It's not live action.
With the Book of Mormon, though, they're bringing that edge to live theater.
Right into the audience's face.
Yeah, and that's where Robert Lopez enters the picture. This is the guy behind Avenue Q.
Right. Another musical that's really famous for pushing boundaries. Okay, So these three minds come together, and their big idea, a musical about Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon Church.
Not exactly your typical, lighthearted Broadway fare.
Yeah, far from it. But what's fascinating to me is their dedication to getting it right. They spent, get this, years, literal years, workshopping it, refining the material.
Yeah.
Workshopping a musical about religion.
I mean, talk about a recipe for some creative chaos.
So what did they end up creating? At its heart, the Book of Mormon follows these two young Mormon missionaries.
Yeah.
And they're totally different from each other.
Total opposites.
And they're sent to Uganda to spread the word. So it's a classic fish out of water story, but with a twist.
Oh, definitely a twist. And the Ugandan setting is so crucial because it lets them explore not just those clashing cultures, but they get to portray a community that's dealing with some really serious struggles like poverty, AIDS, and you've got these missionaries coming in trying to preach about this totally different reality.
Right, very different. So we meet Elder Price. He's kind of the golden boy missionary, the one who dreams of going to Orlando, Florida for his mission.
Oh, Orlando.
Instead, he ends up in a reality that is far from the pristine image that he has in his head.
Yeah, and then there's Elder Cunningham. Now he's insecure and obsessed with pop culture, and he ends up, let's just say, getting a little creative with his attempts to preach the Mormon message.
A little creative, yeah. The story really dives into their lives, how they react to these missionaries, their perspective on this whole thing.
Which is so important. I mean, think about it. The musical is called The Book of Mormon, but we're spending a lot of time with people who've never even heard of it.
Yeah.
That's deliberate. It makes you think, who are the real outsiders in this story, and who gets to tell whose story?
And in the middle of all this, you've got tap dancing, incredibly catchy songs, and humor that goes from, silly wordplay to straight-up biting satire.
It's like they're keeping you on your toes.
Never knowing if you should laugh or gasp.
And in a way, that's how a lot of people feel about religion, isn't it?
So let's talk about that gasp factor, because the Book of Mormon isn't just funny, it's
controversial.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, Broadway has always had a taste for pushing boundaries, but this show took it to a whole new level.
But that humor, while it might make some people laugh, also got the show into some hot water.
For sure. The accusations of racism, that's a big one.
Yeah, that's the elephant in the room.
It is. We can't just ignore it. The way the show portrays African people and their culture, it has been criticized. People say it relies on harmful stereotypes.
We're not here to tell you what to think. But to really understand the Book of Mormon, we got to acknowledge these criticisms. And it's worth thinking about how things have changed since the show first premiered. What might have been considered edgy back then might land very differently now.
Absolutely. Things evolve. It's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Now, on the flip side, you've got the Mormon Church's reaction. And it's surprisingly, well, chill.
They're pretty cool about it. I mean, instead of condemning the show, they've actually advertised in its playbills.
With slogans like, "You've seen the play, now read the book."
I mean, talk about turning the other cheek.
But is it just clever marketing? Or there's something more going on there?
That's a great question. I think it's definitely worth pondering. It shows a willingness to engage, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe even use the show to start conversations.
I love that. And that's what makes this musical so fascinating. It makes you talk, makes you think about your own beliefs, your biases.
And on top of all that, it's got all these like fun details, memorable moments.
It's packed with them.
Like the fact that Nabulunji, her name changes every night. They use a pop culture reference specific to the audience.
Oh, wow. So if you go to the show in your hometown, suddenly Nabulunji is named after, I don't know, your local sports team or a famous landmark.
Exactly.
That is a level of audience interaction you don't see every day.
It keeps things fresh, adds this layer of humor that's totally unique to each show.
Brilliant. And then there's Elder Price's Spooky Mormon Hell Dream.
Oh, man.
Which is exactly what it sounds like.
It's this wild, hilarious, slightly terrifying sequence. You've got historical figures like Genghis Khan, Adolf Hitler, mixed in with like Johnny Cochran.
Johnny Cochran.
It's perfect. It shows how the show blends the absurd and the profound.
Okay, before we get too lost in Mormon hell, let's zoom out a little. Look at the bigger picture. The Book of Mormon has had this incredible run. Broadway, touring the globe, translated into tons of languages. It's a phenomenon.
It is. And that global reach is telling. It suggests that despite the potentially offensive stuff, it's tapped into something universal, something about our need to believe, our search for meaning.
Our messy relationship with faith and doubt.
Exactly. And that brings us right back to those uncomfortable questions it raises. What do you think Parker and Stone were really trying to do with this musical? Was it all laughs? Or is there a deeper message under all the satire?
And maybe, just maybe, laughing at those things, even in a musical about Mormons, can help us take ourselves a little less seriously.
Exactly. Sometimes the best way to deal with the tough stuff is to laugh at it, laugh at ourselves.
I like that.
It's this reminder that theater, it's alive. It's not just a script, it's an experience shaped by the audience, the context of where it's performed.
And speaking of context, we can't talk about the Book of Mormon without talking about the controversies. We touched on the racism accusations, but I think we need to go a bit deeper there, especially how those criticisms have been addressed over time.
Right. The creators have made some changes, especially back in 2020. But the question remains, have they done enough?
Yeah, it's complicated. There isn't an easy answer. Some people say that even with the changes, the show still uses those harmful stereotypes. It doesn't portray African people and culture in a good light. Others believe that the show's satire targets everyone, Mormons too. And ultimately, it's celebrating faith, even if it's a little unconventional.
And that's where it gets really interesting. It makes us think about satire's role in art, the limits of humor, and if creators have a responsibility to be mindful of how their work might impact people.
Those are some deep questions. I'm not sure we have the answers, but I think it speaks volumes about the Book of Mormon. It gets people talking. It's not just a show you watch and forget. It stays with you. It makes you think, challenges you to look at your own beliefs, your biases.
It's more than entertainment. It's a cultural phenomenon. It started debates, inspired tons of articles, and people all over the world are still connecting with it.
We've talked about the controversy, the humor, the thought-provoking themes. But what about the heart of the show? What's it really saying about faith, about belief, about our search for meaning as humans?
That's the big question. And I think the answer lies not just in the plot, but in how they use music, satire, even those controversial parts, to explore how complex the human experience is.
Like they're saying, yes, religion can be absurd, it can be hypocritical, it can be used to justify all sorts of terrible things.
Yeah, but at the same time, it gives people comfort, a sense of community, a purpose.
And that's what makes the Book of Mormon so fascinating. It doesn't shy away from the dark side of faith, but it also shows how powerful belief can be, even when that belief takes on, well, unconventional or unexpected forms.
That's a balancing act.
And it's what makes it so compelling. It's funny, thought-provoking, controversial, but ultimately it's a celebration of what makes us human, all the messy, contradictory parts.
And that brings us back to this idea that the show, even though it's about Mormonism, it's actually about faith in general.
It's not about a specific religion. It's about needing to believe in something, finding meaning and purpose in a world that can feel pretty chaotic and absurd sometimes.
Right. And that's a message that speaks to everyone, no matter what you believe or don't believe. It's a reminder that we're all looking for something. We all have our own spooky Mormon hell dreams. And sometimes the best way to deal with those fears is to laugh at them, embrace the absurdity, and know that we're not alone in trying to find meaning.
And I think that's beautiful, even if it comes from tap dancing missionaries and songs about frogs. It makes you realize, all the different reactions the show has gotten. It's not just a simple love it or hate it thing.
It's way more complex than that. You've got people who are totally offended,
Right.
people who think it's hilarious.
And then the Mormon church just chilling, putting ads in the playbill.
That's wild.
It's like the Book of Mormon holds a mirror up to us. Our beliefs, our sense of humor, how comfortable we are or aren't with certain things. It makes us face those things.
Yeah.
And that can be really uncomfortable for some people.
Yeah, especially in a world where we're always told to stay in our comfort zones, stick with people who think like us. But that discomfort, it can be a good thing. It makes you think about ideas that challenge you, see things from different perspectives.
You grow a little. Like they say, if you're not learning, you're not growing. And the Book of Mormon, love it or hate it, it definitely makes you think, starts debates, challenges your assumptions, and forces you to really look at your own beliefs about faith, religion, even just, what it means to be human. It's funny, we started this deep dive. Was the Book of Mormon always the plan?
Who knows? Maybe only they know that. But one thing's for sure, they created something that's had a huge impact. People are still debating it, writing about it, and audiences all over the world are still connecting with it.
Maybe that's the real legacy of the Book of Mormon. It's the conversations it started, the way it's made people think, and how it's touched people's lives.
And that's what good art does, right? At its best, it changes you, makes you laugh, makes you cry, sometimes makes you mad, but it makes you think. And in a world that feels so divided these days, that's something we need to hold on to.
I love that. What a great way to wrap things up. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Book of Mormon. We hope you've learned something new, had a few laughs, and maybe even started to see things a little differently.
And remember, the best deep dives leave you with more questions than answers.
All podcasts from Time Capsule Tunes and Vault Chronicles are rated E for everyone.
You are listening to Vault Chronicles. We go beyond the surface, offering richer understanding and fresh perspectives on the music topics you love. Each month, our hosts engage in thoughtful dialogue, revealing the stories, significance, and nuances behind the featured music. Together with Time Capsule Tunes, we bring you 4 episodes a month, packed with engaging content and meaningful analysis. Don't miss an episode, follow us and join our musical journey.
Welcome back. In this segment, we journey into the enchanting world of Lion King, a Broadway musical that has mesmerized audiences with its breathtaking visuals and vibrant sounds. From the moment the curtain rises, the show transports us to the heart of the African savanna with its stunning set designs. The landscapes are brought to life through intricate details and vivid colors, creating an immersive experience that captures the essence of the wild. One of the most remarkable aspects of The Lion King is its ingenious use of puppets. These meticulously crafted creations are not just props but integral characters, each with its own personality and grace. They move with an uncanny lifelike quality, drawing the audience into the animal kingdom of Pride Rock. And then there's the music. Oh, the music! The African drums infuse the score with a pulsating rhythm that is both primal and exhilarating. The beats resonate with the heartbeat of the land, connecting us to the story in a profound and almost spiritual way. So, join us as we explore the magic behind The Lion King and discover how its set designs, puppetry, and music come together to create a theatrical masterpiece.
Today's deep dive takes us into the world of The Lion King. On stage, that is. Reading through all this stuff about the puppets, I was blown away by how many there actually are. The sources say over 200 puppets, from tiny little birds to a 42-pound warthog named Pumbaa. How do they even move all of that stuff when they go on tour?
It's incredible, isn't it? They actually travel with a whole puppet workshop. like a mini factory on wheels. Imagine all the work that goes into making sure each puppet is packed up, transported, and then ready for every single show.
Wow, that's crazy. I bet all those puppets get pretty beat up too.
Oh yeah, definitely. The puppet specialists are always looking for cracks or breaks, and they have to be super creative when it comes to fixing them. One interview talked about how they had to fix Pumbaa's leg in the middle of a show with just tape and zip ties.
Wait, they fixed Pumbaa during the show. That's some serious dedication.
Yeah, it shows how much they care about the magic of the show. There's no understudy for a main character puppet, so they have to think fast and keep the show going no matter what. And it's worked out so far. A main puppet has never missed a scene.
Okay, so we've got hundreds of puppets, a traveling workshop, on-the-spot repairs. This is starting to sound less like theater and more like an Olympic sport.
Well, there's definitely some athleticism involved, especially for the people operating those giant characters like the giraffes.
The production notes make it sound like those are a real challenge to operate.
Oh yeah, the giraffe take a ton of balance and coordination. The performers are basically walking on stilts, and they have to use their arms and legs to control the puppet's movements. They have to move gracefully, but also make it look like a real towering giraffe.
It's amazing how they blend puppetry, costume design, and the actor's own movements for those characters. It's not just about moving the puppet around. It's about really embodying the animal.
Exactly. And that choice shows something really important about the visual style of The Lion King. They're not always going for realism, but more of a heightened theatrical style. That evokes the feeling of the African savanna.
So we've established that puppetry is at the heart of The Lion King. But as we dig deeper into our sources, we're finding that it's just one piece of a much bigger artistic puzzle. The set design, for instance, seems to be more about suggestion and emotion than a literal recreation of Africa.
You're right. The designers went with theatrical symbolism over realism. They're not trying to put a real savanna on stage. They want the audience to use their imagination to create a more immersive experience, and one that's more emotionally resonant too.
Yeah, I loved the description of the sunrise and circle of life, created with flowing silks and clever lighting.
It's a great example of how they engage the audience's senses and emotions. Rather than just showing them a picture, you feel the warmth of the sun, the vastness of the sky, the anticipation of a new day starting.
I'm really intrigued by this idea of the double event, where the masks have a fixed expression and the actor's face shows the emotion. Can you explain how that works on stage?
Sure. It's a really clever technique. It gives the characters more depth. Think about Mufasa. His mask looks majestic and stoic, but the actor's eyes show warmth and fatherly love. This interplay lets the audience connect with the character on both an animal and a human level.
That's fascinating. It's like two performances happening at once.
Exactly. And the designers use this technique to create a whole bunch of different characters, each with their own personality and visual style.
So let's get into some specific examples. You've got detailed notes on the design choices for Simba, Mufasa, Scar, and even Timon and Pumbaa. What stands out to you about how those iconic characters are brought to life visually?
Well, each character's design is carefully made to reflect their personality and their role in the story. Take Simba, for example. As a cub, he doesn't wear a mask, so you can see all that youthful energy. But as he gets older, the mask, the mane, the beaded corset, they all come together to show his growth into adulthood and his destiny as king.
It's like a visual coming-of-age story. You see Simba literally growing into his destiny.
Right, and Mufasa's design with its golden colors and flowing fabrics evokes warmth, wisdom, and leadership. He has a presence that's both regal and comforting.
It's interesting how they use detailed realism for some characters, but a more stylized approach for others. What do you think drives those choices?
Well, it often reflects the character's role in the story and their relationship to the natural world. Mufasa, as king, represents the harmony and balance of the Pride Lands, and his design reflects that. Scar, on the other hand, represents disruption and chaos.
Yeah, his mask is intentionally asymmetrical. It suggests an imbalance, a disruption of the natural order. And those sharp, angular lines, they hint at his cunning and ambition.
Exactly. His ambition drives him to fight for power. But his methods are sneaky and destructive. He's a stark contrast to Mufasa's regal bearing, visually embodying the conflict at the heart of the story.
And then there's Timon and Pumbaa. They seem to break away from the more stylized look of the lions. What's going on there?
Timon and Pumbaa represent a different part of the story, the Hakuna Matata philosophy. Their design is meant to be more whimsical and less imposing. They bring a sense of lightheartedness and humor to the story, and their design reflects that change in tone.
It's really interesting how they can use such different visual styles while still keeping a cohesive overall look.
It shows how skilled the designers are. that they can convey so much about a character through visuals alone.
Yeah.
And it's this attention to detail that takes The Lion King from just entertainment to a truly immersive theatrical experience.
All right, we've explored the puppetry, the set design, the character design. I think it's time we talk about the music. What makes the music of The Lion King so unique and impactful?
Well, the music is absolutely essential to the success of The Lion King. It's not just background noise, it's an active part of the storytelling, creating an emotional landscape that reflects the story's journey.
You're the expert here. I know there's a lot more to it than just Elton John's catchy tunes, right?
Oh, definitely. Well, Elton John's pop style is definitely there. The score is mixed with elements of African choral music, drumming, chanting, and even operatic elements. It's a real fusion of cultures.
That's really interesting how they've blended so many different musical styles. What was the idea behind that?
Well, it reflects the story's themes of diversity and interconnectedness. You have the influence of Western pop music, but it's combined with traditional African rhythms and harmonies, creating a sound that's both familiar and new.
And it's not just the score itself, but how the musicians are part of the production that really stands out.
The percussionists especially have a big role. They're often visible on stage, and their drumming becomes a visual and sonic heartbeat. That drives the energy of the show.
Speaking of the percussionists, the production notes mention that using African drums was a deliberate choice, reflecting their importance in many African cultures.
Exactly. In many African cultures, drums aren't just instruments. They're tools for communication, storytelling, and even connecting with the spiritual world. Having them on stage adds another layer of authenticity and cultural meaning to the production.
So the music is this amazing blend of styles and traditions, but it also has to move the story forward emotionally. How do they achieve that?
The score moves smoothly from moments of pure joy and celebration, like the opening circle of life, to scenes of deep sadness like Mufasa's death. And ultimately it ends with a feeling of hope and renewal. The music guides the audience through this emotional journey, which makes it even more powerful.
You know, thinking about the music, it's almost like a small-scale version of the show's message, about how all living things are connected, different styles and cultures coming together to create something beautiful and strong.
That's a great observation. The music isn't just there in the background, it embodies the themes of the story.
This has been incredible. We've covered the puppets, the fantastic costumes, the set design, and the powerful music. It's clear that every part of The Lion King is carefully thought out and created.
The story themes of family responsibility and finding your place in the world go beyond cultural boundaries, and the production's commitment to diversity, both on stage and behind the scenes, makes that message even stronger.
So as we come to the end of our deep dive, what stands out to you about the world of The Lion King?
For me, it's the dedication to excellence, the spirit of collaboration that goes beyond borders, and the understanding that this story belongs to everyone.
It's like you have a backstage pass to the creative process. You get a deeper understanding of the artistry and the heart. So until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.
You're listening to Vault Chronicles, the companion podcast to Time Capsule Tunes. Join us each month as we take a deep dive into the music themes explored by the Time Capsule Tunes podcast, bringing you detailed discussions and unique insights in a dynamic two-person format.
Welcome back to Vault Chronicles. In this final segment, we're diving into the groundbreaking Broadway musical Rent, a show that has left an indelible mark on the world of theater. Rent transposes these themes to the vibrant and gritty East Village of New York City in the late 20th century. The musical brilliantly weaves together the timeless narrative of love, friendship, and the pursuit of artistic dreams. At its core, Rent also addresses the profound impact of AIDS and HIV on the lives of its characters. The show poignantly portrays the harsh realities and emotional turmoil faced by those living with the disease during the height of the epidemic. Through its powerful storytelling and unforgettable music, it not only pays homage to Puccini's masterpiece, but also shines a light on the resilience and hope of a community grappling with loss and adversity. Join us as we explore the legacy of Rent and its enduring influence on both the world of theater and our collective consciousness.
All right, we're diving into Rent.
It's a show that premiered over 20 years ago, and it still gets people talking. There's so many think pieces on its cultural influence, and even comparisons to the opera that it was based on.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess our mission today is to figure out just what makes Rent so enduring. What kind of impact did it have, and why does it still resonate with people even now?
Well, to really understand that, you have to understand the context. Rent is set in New York City, in the East Village. during the late 80s and early 90s, a time that was marked by the AIDS crisis, and also this really thriving but struggling artistic community.
Okay, yeah. I see you've included a lot about Puccini's La Bohème in the materials you sent over. I remember reading somewhere that Rent is basically a modern retelling of the opera. Is that accurate?
It is. It really is. Think of it this way. La Bohème's tuberculosis becomes the AIDS epidemic. And that romantic backdrop of 1800s Paris, well, that gets swapped for the gritty reality of the East Village.
Okay, so the setting and that central struggle are updated.
Yeah.
But are there any direct parallels between the characters?
Oh, absolutely. You can see it in the characters themselves, like Mimi in Rent. She's a direct nod to Mimi from La Bohème. They both face similar struggles, and they both embody this kind of tragic beauty. And then there's Roger. He's a struggling musician with a dark secret, and he mirrors Rodolfo, the poet from the opera.
Wow. Okay, I'm starting to see the connection. So it's like Jonathan Larson took the essence of La Bohème and poured it into this totally new mold.
Exactly. He wanted to create a rock opera, something that would speak to the MTV generation,
Right.
his generation. And that's really where his own experiences come into play. Larson's personal experiences as a struggling artist in NYC. Just picture this, a bathtub in the middle of the kitchen. Not exactly luxurious, but that was Larson's reality. He even had an illegal wood-burning stove and a broken buzzer, so guests had to call from a payphone across the street, and he would throw down the keys.
Wow, that definitely wasn't glamorous. But it sounds like he was really immersed in that artist's lifestyle. Do you think that's why Rent feels so authentic?
I think it's a huge part of it. Larson wasn't just telling a story, he was living it. Even the character of Marc, the filmmaker who documents everything, he's based on some of Larson's own friends.
Wow, so he was basically surrounded by the inspiration for Rent. Did he ever imagine that it would become such a phenomenon?
It's hard to say. What we do know is that Rent premiered off-Broadway in 1996, then moved to Broadway the same year, and just exploded into this cultural sensation.
I remember reading about those diehard fans, the ones they called Rent heads. Did they exist right from the start?
Oh, absolutely. They were devoted. Back then, they would camp out for hours just to score those discounted tickets.
Yeah, that reminds me. Didn't Rent actually pioneer that rush ticket system? That's so common on Broadway today.
They did. It was Larson's way of making sure the show was accessible to everyone, especially young people and aspiring artists who maybe couldn't afford a full-price ticket. He wanted them to experience that story, to feel that energy, the energy of Rent.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Did Rent's portrayal of the AIDS crisis have any specific impact on how people viewed the disease?
Oh, it's hard to overstate the impact. Rent was revolutionary in how it depicted people living with HIV. It didn't shy away from the struggles, but it also showed their humanity, their love, their humor, their fight for dignity.
So it challenged the stigma surrounding AIDS.
Absolutely. And by doing so, it helped to change the conversation. It showed that people with AIDS were more than just a diagnosis. They were individuals with stories, with hopes, with dreams.
That's incredibly powerful. Okay, so Rent was this massive hit on Broadway. But did its influence extend beyond the stage?
Oh, definitely. Think about Idina Menzel, who originated the role of Maureen. Rent was her breakout role. Would we even have Wicked or Frozen without her powerhouse vocals?
That's a good point. Rent really launched her career.
Yeah.
It's amazing how a song written about a specific experience during the AIDS crisis can connect with such a wide range of human experiences.
That's the beauty of Rent. It speaks to something universal. The fear in Will I is real, but so is the comfort of finding community, finding support, which is something Rent really emphasizes.
We've been talking about Rent's connection to La Bohème, but it's also this groundbreaking rock musical. How did Larson manage to blend those two worlds so seamlessly?
That's where Larson's innovation really shines. He took this traditional musical theater structure and infused it with these contemporary rock and pop influences. The result was something totally fresh and unexpected.
So he was pushing the boundaries of what a musical could be.
Oh, he absolutely was. Think about the sung-through format of Rent. There's very little spoken dialogue. The music carries the story forward, which is very different from the traditional musical theater approach.
We've talked about the cultural impact, the enduring themes, the groundbreaking production. But there's one more piece of this puzzle we need to address. Jonathan Larson's tragic death. The fact that he died the night before Rent premiered off-Broadway. It makes its success so much more poignant.
It's a heartbreaking story. After pouring his heart and soul into the show for years, he never got to witness its phenomenal impact.
It really makes you wonder what else he would have created if he had more time.
It does. But even though his life was cut short, Larson's legacy lives on through Rent.
And that's what makes this whole deep dive so powerful. We're not just exploring a musical, we're exploring a life, of vision and the enduring power of art to touch hearts and minds long after its creator is gone. I wonder how Larson would feel, knowing that his creation has touched so many lives and inspired such a passionate fan base. It's a shame he never got to witness it firsthand.
I agree. It's a bittersweet story, but ultimately one of hope and inspiration for everyone.
You know, it's amazing to think about how one musical can encompass so much: love, loss, hope, despair, activism, art, and even a bathtub in the kitchen.
It's a testament to Jonathan Larson's vision and his ability to weave together these seemingly disparate elements into this cohesive and unforgettable whole. He created something truly special with Rent.
And that's what makes this deep dive so rewarding. We're not just scratching the surface. We're really digging into the heart and soul of Rent and discovering how it continues to speak to us, challenge us, and inspire us, even in 2024.
It really does.
Thank you for joining us on this Broadway journey. Today, we've explored 3 remarkable musicals, each unique in its own right, yet all bound by their powerful storytelling and unforgettable performances. These musicals remind us of the diverse ways theater can touch our lives, provoke thought, and stir our emotions, whether through laughter, a wee, or tears. Each of these shows leaves an indelible mark on the hearts of audiences around the world. We hope you've enjoyed this journey through Broadway's finest and that you'll join us next time for more insights and stories from the world of music. Until then, keep dreaming, keep creating, and keep the spirit of alive in your heart. Thank you, and see you next time. You have been listening to Vault Chronicles, a companion podcast to Time Capsule Tunes. We're here to enhance your musical journey with more in-depth discussions and fascinating stories. Subscribe, follow, share, and stay connected with us as we continue to explore the wonderful world of music. Until next time, take care and keep the music alive.